I'm going to deal with one objection some people have. They have the objection that there is no redemption possible for people who have died, and that many times people cite the Romans chapter 1 verses 19 and 20 and say, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath shewed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So they claim this to be scripture that shows that people, no matter where they were born, if they never heard about Jesus Christ, they're still without excuse because of God had manifested himself in so many different ways to people in their lives. So people should, from their nature, be willing to look for God and try to live his commandments. Now, this is actually not true at all. Let's read the next verse, verse 21. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. So that's why they're not without excuse, because they didn't glorify God, and they didn't, even though they had the truth, they still were wicked. And then verse before those two verses, verse 18 says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness. So people who hold the truth in unrighteousness. So people who have the truth, but they still are unrighteous and don't take advantage of the truth. Those people are without excuse. And if you read the whole book, the chapter, the context is clearly that talks about the Jews. They had the truth. They had God manifested them so many times. So they were without excuse. So this has nothing to do with refuting that there can be no salvation for the dead. And also, if we go to Romans chapter 10, verse 14 says, how then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent? So there you go. How shall they believe on him whom they have not heard? And how can they hear about if there's no preacher? So people in those jungles who have never heard about Jesus Christ, and people who have never really had the chance to accept Christ, properly knowing about him and his gospel, of course they cannot be held accountable for that. That's clear. So that's why they have the opportunity to receive that gospel later on.